Crumbly shortbread, sweet salted caramel filling and topped with dark chocolate, this Millionaires Shortbread definitely lives up to its name. Welcome to Recipes by Karina, where I share with you how to make classic and simply delicious recipes. Make sure to subscribe or follow my page for a new recipe each week. We're going to start off by making the shortbread base. There's only 3 ingredients you need for making perfect traditional shortbread: butter, flour and sugar. Occasionally, depending on what you're making, a pinch of salt and maybe some vanilla for flavour. In a small bowl, we're going to measure out our butter and sugar. We'll need 160 grams or 1.5 sticks of room temperature butter. I've cut mine up into little cubes so it would come up to room temperature quicker, as I forgot to get it out of the fridge. To the butter, add 1/3 cup or 65 grams of white sugar. We don't want too much sweetness here, as the caramel layer on top will carry so much of that. Using a whisk, give it a quick cream together for a few minutes. You can use a hand mixer or a stand mixer here if you would like, but we don't need it light and fluffy, so if your butter is at room temperature, a whisk should be pretty easy. If you'd like the full recipe for this Millionaire Shortbread, it'll be on my website, as well as the full measurements listed in the description box below. To the combined butter and sugar, we want to measure out the flour. We'll need 250 grams or 2 cups of all-purpose or standard flour. You'll notice I give the recipe amounts in cups and grams, so no matter where you live in the world, you should find this recipe easy enough to follow. Add it straight into the bowl, and using a wooden spoon or silicone spatula, fold the ingredients together until they are combined. You'll end up with a kind of wet sand texture. Just make sure it clumps together and we're ready to bake. Let me know in the comments below if you know this is Millionaire Shortbread or chocolate caramel slice, as people seem to be pretty divided. I definitely made this many times years and years ago, but knowing it is chocolate caramel slice at the time. Whatever it's called, it's definitely delicious and incredibly rich, like the name Millionaire Shortbread suggests. I'm making a salted caramel today for the filling, as salted sweet things are my favourite, but you can easily leave out the salt if you want it more traditional. This is also a great base recipe for many slices or squares, so feel free to use it for any other type of baking you would like to do, if caramel really isn't your thing. Take a square baking pan and line with non-stick paper so the shortbread can be easily removed. You'll need to use some kind of barrier here that isn't just non-stick spray, as the caramel won't come out of the pan easily. I'm cutting diagonally down each side so it sits perfectly into the corners, so I can have perfect looking caramel slice without the jagged edges. Alternatively, you can use 2 pieces of non-stick paper here, both going in opposite directions, so it sort of falls over the edges, and you can use them as a kind of sling to get the shortbread out when it's ready. Tip the shortbread base into the pan, and using a metal spoon, press the base down evenly into a single layer. There are a few different techniques for this, like using a cup with a flat base or another piece of non-stick paper over the top, pressing with your hands. Whatever works best for you, it doesn't need to be 100% perfect. There are a couple variants you can make with this recipe, and one of them is a different base. A popular version here in New Zealand is to use Anzac biscuit dough as the base, as it's chewy and oaty and goes really well with the caramel. Another would be more of a coconut chocolate kind of base. Let me know if you prefer traditional shortbread or something a bit different. When you have a nice even layer, place the shortbread base into a 160 degrees Celsius or 325 degree Fahrenheit oven for about 35 minutes, or until the edges are just starting to get brown. It'll be soft when it comes out of the oven and will harden as it cools. This caramel is pretty easy to make. We're just going to combine a few ingredients and cook it until it starts to turn golden. It's best to wait to start this step when you've taken the shortbread base out of the oven, giving it time to cool as we make the caramel, as we'll be pouring it straight over the top. In a medium-sized saucepan, we want to add the butter. You'll need 115 grams or 1 stick. We're melting it here so you don't need to worry about it being room temperature. Cut it into a few pieces just so it melts easier and add it to the pan. We're going to need 400 grams of sweetened condensed milk. This is just one of those small cans worth. If you're wondering what sweetened condensed milk actually is, it's just regular milk that's been heated so most of the liquid evaporates, plus the addition of sugar ending in the sweet, thick liquid gold which creates the most luxurious and beautiful caramel. Pour it all into the bowl, scraping the last of it out. It's pretty sweet, but this is caramel, so we'll be adding some sugar. You'll need 3/4 of a cup or 150 grams of white granulated sugar. You can also use brown sugar here if you want a stronger, more toffee flavour to your caramel. The last ingredient is 50 grams or 2 tablespoons of golden syrup. I get many questions on golden syrup as it doesn't seem to be a common ingredient in many places. It's a sort of a sweet toffee sort of syrup. It may also be called light treacle, but if you can't find it, you can use honey, maple syrup or corn syrup in its place. I would recommend golden syrup or honey here as both will give a delicious flavour to the caramel. Take your saucepan and heat it over medium-low heat, making sure to stir as it melts. This caramel will burn super easy, so make sure not to take your eyes off it and keep the heat relatively low. Ideally, for the absolute best caramel texture, not too hard but not too soft, we want to get it to about 110 degrees Celsius or 230 degrees Fahrenheit. I know so many of you won't have thermometers and it's really not essential at all. I've made it with and without, and as long as you pay attention, you'll get it just about perfect. We want to heat the caramel just until it starts to change colour. It'll go from kind of beige from when you first combine the ingredients to starting to get more of a golden tinge at about 5 minutes or so. When this starts to happen, you want to remove it from the heat as the residual from the saucepan will continue cooking it a little longer. Wait a few minutes for it to cool a little before adding the last 2 ingredients. We'll need a teaspoon of vanilla extract and about a teaspoon of flaky salt. Here you can add as little or as much salt as you would like depending on the flavour you're going for. 1 teaspoon is about the perfect amount for just rounding out the flavours but not adding that salted flavour. But I would go for a couple if you want it a little more salted, or 3 if you want it properly salted. Add these to the saucepan and mix the caramel until everything is evenly combined. The heat should dissolve the salt and you'll notice it change colour even further at this point from the heat, more of a deep golden shade. Pour the caramel out onto the baked shortbread base and tilt the square pan around, making sure each corner is covered. Keep your pan flat at this point as the caramel will self-level as it cools. You can either do this at room temp for about 4 to 5 hours or leave it in the fridge for a few before starting the next step. Lastly, all we need to do is add the chocolate topping. In a small bowl we want to add our dark chocolate and oil. We're using oil here as it makes the chocolate a bit thinner, so the finished caramel slice can be sliced without the chocolate cracking. You'll need about 150 grams of dark chocolate or 5 ounces and 2 tablespoons or 30 ml of a kind of flavourless oil. Either melt the chocolate in the microwave in 20-second bursts or over a water bath. When it's smooth, pour it out over the caramel layer and place it back into the fridge for at least a few hours to set. I made this all in one day and left it in the fridge overnight to completely set before cutting it up the next morning. Slice it up and enjoy. It's best kept in the fridge, and if you have too much, it freezes perfectly. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this recipe and I'll see you in my next video.